Freddie is seated at a table in a cafe, repeatedly introducing himself as practice for when his date will arrive. So Freddie Ginwala happens to be a shy, weird dentist in Mumbai. And in the name of searching for a soulmate, Freddie has had many blind dates. And he's currently having one that comes to an end the moment it begins. That evening, it's revealed that Freddie has been lonely for a while now, and his only friend is his pet turtle. He also spends his free time working on toy planes. But one sad truth about Freddie is that when he was a child, his father shot his mother and then committed suicide all in his presence. As a result, his Aunt Persis has been his guardian. Aunt Persis calls Freddie while he's painting one of his toy planes. She tells him to stop painting it like she already knew. She also tells him to go to bed and bids him goodnight, but after getting off the phone, Freddie continues. The next day, he goes to work at his hospital and returns that evening to continue painting his toys. Just then, he gets a call from a woman who is so overly excited about meeting him. She informs him about their hobbies and manages to get Freddie excited too. He immediately suggests they'd meet at a cafe by 3 the next day. At the said time, Freddie arrives at the cafe waiting for his mysterious lady. However, Freddie gets stood up. When he stands up to leave, he encounters a group of students laughing and repeating the conversation Freddie had on the phone call. This puts him to a sudden realization that he's been pranked by them. But since there's nothing he can do, he just walks away. Some days later, Freddie is at a relative's wedding, where his Aunt Persis convinces him to talk to a woman, Kainaz, whom she claims has been staring at Freddie. She then manages to convince Freddie to go and talk to her. But when Freddie tries to talk to her, her husband, Rustam, who's catering the wedding, shows up and harasses him. Freddie then returns to his seat shamefully. Poor guy, all Freddie wants is just love. Is that too much for a man to ask? Anyway, the next day, while Freddie's at work, he gets a new patient. Fortunately, it's Kainaz, and she has come to extract her wisdom tooth. Freddie is surprised at first, but it's not like she knew to come there. She finally introduces herself and recognizes Freddie's mom's photo as a popular musician. She also tells Freddie that she was inspired by his mom to play the cello, but had to give it up because she's married. Freddie gets her tooth checked and then schedules surgery for her the next day. The following day, Kainaz returns for her appointment with Freddie. After administering anesthesia to her, Freddie whispers the words, "I love you," before he begins the extraction process. Now, that's just creepy, but it's not like she heard him. After the surgery, Freddie proceeds to prescribe medications for Kainaz. He asks about her allergies to know what type of meds to give her, so she tells him she's allergic to dishwashing liquid. After the prescription, he offers to take her home, but she kindly refuses. But of course, Freddie wasn't just going to give up like that, so he told her to return for a checkup the next day. He quickly takes her file and checks her address, and obtains her contact as well. Don't worry, it gets creepier the further we advance. After work that day, Freddie drives up to Kainaz's street and parks just opposite her apartment. Meanwhile, Kainaz has just returned home from hanging out with her friends to meet her husband. Furious, he tells Kainaz that he has been hungry and waiting for her. She tells him that she was at a friend's house after leaving the hospital for her surgery. But Rustam doesn't care about her explanation. All he wished to know was why Kainaz would leave the house without preparing food for him. He starts beating her up despite her plea and her sore jaw. Freddie sees this from the window and rushes out to help, but it's only a matter of time before he realizes he's currently stalking and can't just show up like that. He then returns to his vehicle and drives off. Sadly, the next day, Kainaz doesn't show up for her checkup. Freddie knows why, but he tells his secretary to put her on the line. Thankfully, Kainaz picks up the phone. Freddie asks her to come for her checkup so he can know if she's healing properly post the surgery. But Kainaz tells him that she won't be able to make it. Freddie tries to persuade her, but when she keeps refusing, he suggests they meet at the park for just a few minutes and she finally agrees. A while later, they both meet up. Kainaz has bruises all over her face, and Freddie doesn't know how to respond. He tries to confront her about it, but she immediately starts crying.
Don't cry.
After comforting her, he buys her ice cream and then she apologizes for crying. However, Freddie isn't after the apology, but wants to know why she would still be with a man who's treating her like that. But she spent way too much time outside and wouldn't like a second beating, so she has to leave. That night, Freddie calls her again, but she beckons him to not call her at night since her husband's around. So he apologizes and asks to meet her again to give her a gift. so she agrees. And soon after, Rustam travels for work, giving Kainaz the opportunity to hang out with Freddie. In fact, they start dating, and the feelings are reciprocated by Kainaz. And you'd start to think that finally Freddie has found the one. But Rustam is still in the picture, and Kainaz wants to be free from him. During one of their dates, Kainaz tells Freddie that she dreams of owning a restaurant one day, but her husband won't let her see her dreams come true. Freddie then tells her he has an idea of how to rid her of Rustam. He proposes to her, and she agrees. After calculatingly monitoring Rustam's routine, he follows him with a car one day and runs him over 3 times before bolting off. After the incident, he goes to his farmhouse in Karjat to stay for a week and get his car fixed. With everything carefully planned, the police are unable to find evidence regarding the death of the famous restaurant owner Rustam. A week later, Freddie returns to Kainaz at her home but is shocked to see another man, Raymond. Raymond so happens to be the chef of Rustam's restaurant and Kainaz's boyfriend, whom she always wanted to be with from the start. Too bad. Kainaz reveals to Freddie that she never loved him and has only been using him to get her husband out of the picture so she and Raymond can be together and so that she can finally take over the restaurant. Freddie tries to retaliate, but Kainaz informs him that if he does anything stupid, they'll report him to the police. She shows him the pictures Raymond caught of Freddie stalking Kainaz and the messages between him and Kainaz, which they would use as proof that Freddie tried to get her attention. But when she refuses, he takes her husband's life. This is just cruel. How dare she? The heartbreak takes a toll on poor Freddie, but also fuels his anger to get revenge. But before the revenge, he goes to their restaurant to have a drink. Kainaz and Raymond notice his presence, but decide to ignore him until he orders the same drink 3 times. On the 3rd order, Raymond takes it to Freddie himself, but spits in it before handing it over. Freddie drinks it anyway, but this creeps Raymond out and he attacks Freddie. Freddie then tells them he only wants an apology, but Raymond barks at him to get out of the restaurant. And with this, Freddie's urge for revenge surged. Now, this is where it gets fun. After plotting and monitoring their everyday routine, Freddie sneaks into their house when they're away. He pours dishwashing liquid into Kainaz's body wash and drugs their food. Before leaving to conclude today's dose of revenge, he deletes all the evidence they have of him stalking Kainaz and his messages with her. He also sends a text from Kainaz to himself, but I'd like to leave its content as a surprise for you guys. Finally, he leaves to remove Raymond's car's brake fluid, and as planned, Kainaz wakes up to see her face and quickly tells Raymond to take her to the hospital. However, due to the faulty brakes, they get into an accident and sustain injuries. It doesn't end there though. The following day, Kainaz discovers that a customer complained about finding a lizard in their meal. She then gets a message from the health inspectors that they'll be closing down the place until investigations are carried out. Kainaz then leaves the house with Raymond to the restaurant, granting Freddie another chance to sneak in. He uses Freddie's laptop to post an obscene photo of Kainaz and Raymond. Meanwhile, Kainaz is trying to figure out what to do about the reputation of her restaurant when she receives another notification of a post. She's shocked and quickly attacks Raymond. But Raymond is innocent and asks how he would post the photo when he's standing right next to her. Just then, Kainaz realizes that Freddie is the one doing this to them. The couple then march to his house to beat him up. Freddie, on the other hand, is expecting them, so he prepares his jaw to take the beating. When the duo arrives, he asks if they've finally come to apologize, but Raymond immediately attacks him. However, the police arrive there soon enough, as Freddie had called them beforehand. Raymond asks what they're going to do, and Kainaz tells him they'll tell the officers the truth. As they let the police in, Kainaz explains to them that Freddie had eliminated her husband due to jealousy, as she refused to give him the attention he wanted. The police ask for proof, and they both confidently pull out their phones, only to realize that everything has been deleted. Smart move, Freddie. Later, Freddie is hanging out with Aunt Persis, who keeps asking about the girl Freddie told her he was finally going to marry. If only she knows what's going on. Freddie tells her that they broke up, but Aunt Persis wants him to try and persuade the girl. But when Freddie tells her that he did, and she says she'll think about it, Aunt Persis realizes that it's not worth it being all simply like that. Freddie returns home later that day to find a bullet at his front door, and his entire house is turned upside down. He calls Kainaz and tells them that he got their messages. Then he informs them that he had let a snake loose in their house. This causes Kainaz to panic. She quickly drags Raymond along with her to sleep at a hotel or motel just in case there's really a snake in their house. That night at the hotel, Kainaz recalls that Freddy had mentioned the bullet and the trashed house, but is yet to mention his missing turtle friend. And Raymond starts a fire by asking if he's had turtle soup before. Freddy is terrified. He hangs up and quickly starts looking for his best friend. Being unable to find Hardy, he checks the CCTV to find Raymond actually abducting Hardy. Heartbroken, Freddy buries what's left of Hardy and plots the ultimate revenge. He calls the helper staying at the farmhouse and asks him to clean the place up and leave for vacation. He then pays a beggar a huge amount of money to testify against him to the police. The man goes to the station as an eyewitness and reveals Freddy's car number as the culprit of Rustam's death. But when asked if he had seen the driver's face, he told them that it was raining, so he couldn't identify who it was. Meanwhile, Kainaz tells Raymond that they'll have to get rid of Freddy permanently, as things cannot remain this way. The police then rush to interrogate Freddy. When asked where he was on the night of Rustam's death, he says home, but the officers informed him that they had an eyewitness who testified that Freddy's car was used to commit the crime. And that's where the drama begins. Freddy lies to them that Raymond had borrowed his car that night, not that he didn't know it was to run someone over. When asked for proof, Freddy shows them a text from Kainaz saying they'll take his life if they find out he reported to the police. Surprise! That's the text he had sent the night he snuck into their rooms to delete the evidence they had. He also shows them the CCTV footage of Raymond sneaking into his house. After the police leave, Freddy calls Kainaz. Meanwhile, Kainaz, who just had their lock changed and their house thoroughly scoped for snakes, takes the call and asks him what he wants. Freddy informs them about the police, who would be coming for them, but promises to let everything go if they could just apologize to him. He invites them to his farmhouse and tells them that he'll be alone. And Kainaz only sees this as the perfect opportunity to finally rid themselves of the creep, so she agrees. Freddy then tells them to come out with a suitcase, as he forgot to come out with one for the things he plans to pack up. But that's just part of Freddy's plan, and I know you're wondering what the bag is for, but you'll find out pretty soon. The duo leaves with the suitcase and soon arrives at the farmhouse where they plan to eliminate Freddy for good. Freddy welcomes them, and Kainaz starts by faking an apology. It all goes sideways when Freddy places a gun on the table, and somehow Kainaz is able to get the gun. After making fun of Freddy, she pulls the trigger only to find out that the gun isn't loaded. However, this angers Freddy. Raymond then tries to attack him, but he tases him, causing him to go unconscious. Kainaz tries to attack as well, but he does the same to her. Meanwhile, the police see CCTV footage of Raymond and Kainaz leaving their house with a suitcase and conclude that they both fled town. Now you see why the suitcase was needed, don't you? Late at night, Raymond and Kainaz wake up to find that they've been tied up by Freddy. He expresses his grief about Hardy and tells them that back in the day, teeth extraction was done without anesthesia, and so he wishes to see if the tolerance then and now is the same. Kainaz then starts to plead, causing Freddy to grant her the opportunity to speak. Kainaz then blames it all on Raymond. She tells Freddy that Raymond was the one who kidnapped Hardy and did whatever he did to the little guy. What a backstabber. Kainaz will stop at nothing to get what she wants. But in any case, Freddy just needed her to do one thing for him to pardon her, and that was to play the cello. He frees her restraints and hands the cello to her at gunpoint. Sadly, he realizes that Kainaz had also lied about playing the cello and being inspired by his mom. This is to say that she's been plotting to get rid of her husband from the very start, and that there was truly nothing between them. He asks her to lie back down and restrains her again. He then proceeds to pull out their teeth, one after the other. He starts with Raymond, and after he's done, he buries Raymond. Finally, it's Kainaz's turn, but Freddy is fed up and truly has no remorse for her again. Remind me never to mess with a doctor, ever. Afterwards, he takes Kainaz, who's barely holding on to life, to her own grave, which he had dug. But before covering her up with sand, he tells her a joke, saying he still loves her. After burying the duo, he lies between their graves with a look of satisfaction and victory on his face. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2022 movie Freddy, directed by Shashanka Ghosh. The film stars Kartik Aaryan and Alaya F. Moral of the story? Never mess with a doctor. Also, who else felt like Kainaz got what she deserved? Let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.